All right, welcome to Business as Unusual. This is the live stream where we dig into the pressing issues and emerging trends reshaping the business landscape. We're going to start in just a couple of minutes, but wanted to let everyone know if you've got questions, please feel free to add those to the chat, and I will try to get to all of them during today's session. So, I am Kathy Steele. I'm the CEO of Red Caffeine. And for those that are unfamiliar with Red Caffeine, we are a growth consultancy and we build and execute grow to market plans for ambitious mid market companies. Our service offering includes a fractional team that's led by a senior level marketing executive that enables a business to scale rapidly without having to hire a wide range of full time employees. So today we are diving into a topic that is really hot right now, M&A, merger and acquisition. So for those of you that don't love acronyms. So I'm really excited to be joined by our guest, Remo Picchietti. He is the Vice President of Strategy and Corporate Development at Boler Company, and our very own, Amy Anderson, who is the Vice President of Client Services here at Red Caffeine. So at Red Caffeine, we've really seen firsthand how acquisitions can transform a company's growth trajectory. Our work often intersects with the pivotal moments in acquisition and integration, and we understand the complexities and opportunities that these bring. So whether you're a seasoned leader that is refining your acquisition strategy, or you're just really thinking about this as a new avenue for expansion, or you're even thinking about this as an avenue for succession, today's session is going to provide some invaluable insights and some practical strategies. So we're going to talk first about the different M&A options. We're going to talk a bit about the intricacies of selling a business and how to safeguard your growth through the acquisition process. And then we're also going to step into the importance of your brand and product architecture or service architecture in driving a post-acquisition success. So let's dive in. I'm going to ask Remo to give a brief introduction and just tell us something interesting that's not on your bio.
Sure. Thanks, Kathy. It's a pleasure to be here. I am Remo Picchietti, the Vice President of Strategy and Corporate Development at the Boler Company, which is a family business, a significantly sized family business, but we do acquisitions, and our strategy will line up with some of the things we're going to talk about later today. Red Caffeine asked me to join you not only because of what I do now, but what I've done in the past, which includes being a family business owner. I was a third generation family business owner who had to make a decision of what to do with the business, and we ultimately decided to sell. We'll talk about that. I was then an entrepreneur that raised some money to acquire other businesses. I've worked with private equity groups, and I've taught M&A at various Chicago area undergrad and graduate business schools. So I think we're gonna learn a lot today together. The one thing that is not on my bio, Kathy gave me the good suggestion to let people know that I'm a fairly new grandfather. And today, as I was prepping for this, I had a surprise visitor, which was absolutely wonderful. But she did not know that I had plans for the afternoon here.
Oh.
So here we are. Glad to be here. Thanks, Kathy and Amy.
Well, we're family friendly, so we could definitely have a little gal on our lap or something like that. So, Amy, why don't you give us just a brief overview of your career and also what's not on the bio?
Sure. So I'm Amy Anderson, VP of Client Services. I've been at Red Caffeine almost 8 years this summer. So that's taken me through a wide range of helping clients with all sorts of objectives and strategies. But I have to say that this area is definitely one of my favorites. And to your point, Kathy, of how hot it is, I'm dealing with different types of M&A scenarios across almost every single one of my clients right now. So I like to view this a little bit as that Super Bowl time for us, where we really get to dissect a brand and really figure out that next growth trajectory as well. Also in my history, I worked with a very large financial institution who went through a lot of mergers and acquisitions. So, branding, strategy, technology, all of those pieces were a big part of what we did. So, this is all right in my wheelhouse and absolutely one of my most favorite types of projects to work with clients on. Something that is not in my bio is that 2 events are coming up that I am so excited about. First is our annual client satisfaction survey. I know I'm a total client service geek, but I absolutely love doing our survey and hearing from clients about how we're doing. And then the 4th of July, Nathan's famous hot dog eating contest. It's going to be a little different this year. Joey Chestnut not in it. There's a lot of drama going on, but I always enjoy watching that and supporting a previous client of mine.
Well, my life dream is to own a hot dog stand that's floating on some type of tropical body of water. So,
I did not know that about you.
Oh, dogs and DAC. It's my, I've always got a next business idea. So, all right, well, let's kick off. I wanted to start wide because surprisingly, maybe to people that are really working in the M&A space and super knowledgeable about all the types of investor options. I don't find that when I'm talking to a lot of corporate leaders that they're as knowledgeable about all this optionality. So I'd love you to step us through, how do these types of, investors differ in approach and maybe some of the outcomes that they differ. And I don't know that you have to go through every one, but if you could give us a little bit of an overview, Remo.
You got it. You teed that up well. The outcomes of each is very important, Kathy. I'm going to start with the first 2 that get the most press: private equity and venture capital. Private equity is an organization comes together and they raise money from institutional investors like pension funds or something like that. We'll talk about institutional investors as well. They then take that fund and they buy several companies that then they try to add to, try to make more efficient. And their goal, the day they buy that company, their goal is to sell that within 4, 5, 7 years. That's the ultimate goal. Venture capital on the other side that you hear a lot about, especially with Silicon Valley, is raising money. A group raises the money, again, from institutional investors or others, and they support and back an idea and hope that that idea grows large enough to be IPO'd or to go public. That's their ultimate goal or outcome. Private equity looks to borrow money to finance their acquisitions. Venture capital raises money, not debt. They don't borrow money, they just raise money. Another difference is private equity tries to run companies efficiently and to save money. Venture capital is spend, spend, spend. If you are a startup that's supported or backed by venture capital and they give you $10 million, your job is to spend that $10 million, usually on marketing your product, making the product better, etc. Moving on to a strategic buyer, that's what I am today. We are a family business that has companies. We happen to be in the manufacturing spaces, and we look for other manufacturing companies to buy that are strategic to our goals and our ultimate outcomes. So we would not buy a tech startup as a strategic buyer. We'd be looking for other manufacturing businesses. Most of the acquisitions of smaller businesses and mid-market businesses, however you want to define those, are from and to strategic buyers. Family offices, usually that is a business owner or family that had a liquidity event. Maybe they sold their business to a private equity firm and they're looking to reinvest the funds that they've earned into many different things, but would include businesses, which is our subject today. A hedge fund also is an organization that raises money from institutional investors or high net worth individuals. Hedge funds will buy anything. Private equity is buying businesses. Venture capital is investing in businesses. Hedge funds will try to acquire traditional businesses, but they would go out on a limb. They borrow money and they're trying to get one win out of 20 or 30 different investments. They can lose 29 times, but if they win big on that one, then they're a success. The institutional investors going along on our chart here that I've been referencing, those are like pension funds that have to take the money that their union dues in many cases are putting into a pot, and they have to do something with that money. So they are investing in real estate or investing into private equity or venture capital or hedge funds. So they are the source of a lot of funds, and ultimately their outcome is that the value of their investments into these other entities raise, and they're able to share that with their members. Quickly then going down bottom left, angel investors. This is the best way for you to lose your money. An angel investor is usually a high net worth individual who wants to give back and wants to be part of the excitement of working with a startup. So he or she has a family member or a friend who has an idea for a new product, service, whatever it is, a new company, and they need seed money, 5,000, 10,000, 200,000. The rate of success of these is very low. Now, if you hit it big, if you gave Jeff Bezos that $5,000 he was looking for 30 years ago, then you did all right. But you have to, as an angel investor, you have to go in knowing that you'll probably lose your investment. And another thing about angel investors is usually they are experts in a certain field. So someone has an idea in the industry that they worked in. So theoretically, that investor is not only giving money, but able to support that entrepreneur with what he or she is doing. Corporate venture capital is venture capital inside of a company. So we happen to be based right now in the Chicago area. Allstate Insurance has a venture capital arm. CDW has a venture capital arm. They are doing things outside of their normal course of business to try to find that next best idea. Search funds is usually an individual or a group who wants to buy a company or a group of company and needs to raise the money to do that. So it's usually someone who has vast experience and skill in an industry and searches for a company to buy and then finds maybe a private equity partner to help them out, or a strategic partner, or a family office to help them buy that. Now, separate from all those are business brokers and investment bankers. Those are the entities that help you do what you want to do, in this case, buy or sell a business. A broker, and I'm speaking in generalities, and brokers and investment bankers will sometimes balk at what I'm about to say, but a broker is usually someone who's helping a smaller business sell his or her business. If you get into larger businesses, you're going to go to an investment banker because of the depth and the breadth of the services they offer. Investment bankers also will help you raise money. They'll help you go public if you want to do an IPO, where a broker is going to help you find someone to buy your business. So that's Investor Options 101 right there.
I love it. I mean, and so super helpful. I think it helps set up the next set of questions is in really around, like, if you're thinking, I think we're thinking about whether with a company is ready to get into position to be acquired, what are some of the things that they should be thinking about, planning for? What are some of the elements of due diligence that should be on their radar?
Kathy, I'm going to assume that today we're talking to a small to middle market. I doubt there's someone with $1 billion business that's looking to us, right? What our expertise is, and I know Red Caffeine specifically is helping those mid-market companies just continue to grow like they've been doing. So with that, think about when you're selling your house. To simplify things, you're going to clean your house, you're going to paint, you're going to replace the gutters, you're going to get your house ready for sale. The best advice I can give to a business owner is to do the same with your business, not only physically like your home. I've toured businesses that were for sale that were a mess, and you walk in and you walk out because you know if they're a mess, they're not being run properly. But you want to get your house in order physically, and then financially is the key. And we're going to dive into that more on how to get things in order so that when someone comes to look at your business, you have for that potential acquirer what they need.
Yeah, I feel like it's just really great business practice anyways to have your house in order. But these are some questions that we're even getting from some of our clients because it's seemingly intrusive. Some of the things that people are being asked about or for during the diligence process. So could you step us through what is common and best practice?
Yeah, and boy, did you have the perfect word, intrusive.
Okay.
So you're a business owner and you've built it up and it's your baby. And you've probably kept a lot of things to yourself or within your family or your core group of non-family executives that you work closely with. But if you're going to sell your business, you have to come to the realization that there will be no secrets and can't be any secrets. And that can be really hard. Again, as I mentioned at the beginning, I was a private family business owner. I sold to a Fortune 500 company that knew what they were doing as far as being acquisitive was concerned. And these things you see on the screen is what they needed to know. And there were things that I thought, well, why? They don't need to know that. They don't need to know why we separated from our marketing vice president 2 years ago, or whatever it is. And the fact is, they do. They need to know everything. And if you balk or if you're uncomfortable as the owner of opening all the windows and all the doors to your business, if that makes you uncomfortable, it's going to be difficult for you to sell your business, especially if the potential buyers turn out to be mostly competitors, the people you've been every day and night losing sleep over, trying to figure out how you beat them. And now you are opening every window and door to them. Well, if you're going to sell to them, you have to do that. And there are ways to protect yourself in the process if you're working with a competitor, if things don't work out and then they know things you wish they didn't know. But it's a process that you have to be open to. All these things you see are usually related to the financial health of your business and the marketing of your products or services. That's all needed. And if you're not good at that, you need to hire someone that's good at that to do that for you, to prep for selling your business. But an important point, I'm going to maybe even turn it over to Amy. That voice of the customer, bottom right there. You, as the seller, need to make sure that your buyer knows what the customers think of you. Or if you're buying one, we'll get into that in a minute too. You need to know what the customer thinks of your business. It's my baby. My business is perfect as far as I'm concerned, right? But your customers will certainly say differently, right?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like the voice of customer information is so incredibly helpful in understanding the stories behind some of the financials, especially, customer concentration stories, diversity of the offering. I feel like also cybersecurity is becoming such a hot button, really knowing that the asset that you're purchasing has risk mitigation. It's something even in business that we're seeing more and more in the contracts that we're getting. I think in manufacturing, your whole supply chain ecosystem and how you're working, on security between the different suppliers that you're using. It's just, I think for any business, buttoning those kinds of things up are really mission critical. I don't know, Amy, do you have anything to add on the customer standpoint?
Well, I think it also speaks to what you can learn about the brand, right? A brand is more than just a logo and a tagline. It's really how you are perceived by the world. And to understand how your customers perceive you is a great way to get a benchmark on the current brand equity, the strength of the brand, what you might want to take forward as you move down that path of merging or acquiring another company. So to be able to have that strength of the brand understanding too lets you know what are the things you want to carry forward, and then what are areas of improvement that you could use an M&A situation to improve upon.
Yeah, I feel like, I don't know, Remo, are you seeing a lot of voice of customer in the process?
Yes, from yes and no. From sophisticated buyers, if you will, or more experienced buyers, yes, they're trying to learn that uh, as they're doing their due diligence and all these other things listed here. And no one of these is more important than the other. They're
Right.
they're all they're all very important. But we are seeing the business brokers and the investment bankers who have been hired by a business owner to help sell the business. They are spending more time than in years past that I've seen on the voice of customer and marketing and sales processes, as opposed to just numbers, numbers, numbers.
Yeah, it's super helpful to have that post acquisition when you're trying to optimize, the brand. So let's talk about that. So we often, as Amy mentioned, talk about the brand, during and immediately following an acquisition. Can you talk about, a bit more about the brand and product architecture and how that can really influence post acquisition success?
Sure. So on the next slide, just to provide some context, I'm going to talk about brand strategy from the point of view of a company who's acquiring or merging with another company, as they typically have the initial lead on thinking about how those brands will come together. So as Remo just talked about, there's a lot of operations and finances and a lot of those pieces that go into it, but then ultimately you're left with these potentially 2+ brands of, okay, what am I going to do with these brands? How can I bring them together in a way that's going to create the most value and most likely bring together, the thesis for why this acquisition was even made? So one way we like to think about M&A brand strategies is on a scale of conservative approaches to more aggressive approaches. So on the left, you have the most conservative, which is no change. So basically in this situation, each brand, each company continues to exist and function separately. Moving over on the scale next would be fusion. And this is where you utilize brand identity assets from each company to form a new identity. So an example of this might be you would use the name of one company, but the design elements or logo of another company to show a true fusion. On the more aggressive side, there's the stronger horse, where this is when basically one brand is elevated and the other brand integrates within it. Basically, the other brand goes away and there's the one brand that is left. And then on the most aggressive side is you can actually put both current entities aside and create something brand new. There's really, each of these options has their own pros and cons. And when we work with clients, we really dig into this and understand for that current company's situation, marketplace, changing dynamics, value of each company, what really makes the most sense. So it really depends on the company itself.
Yeah.
On
Go
the
ahead.
next on the next slide, this is a little bit then deeper into the strategy of once you're aligned on that larger approach, we can really dive into the brand architecture. So brand architecture is really how you're organizing the framework of a company and really managing those relationships amongst the brands. How are they going to hang together, live together, support that larger brand while also telling the story of your products and services. So it's how a brand presents itself to the world and how they come together. So there really are four main brand strategies that companies typically use. First up is a branded house. So this is where a company's products and services are really marketed under a single brand name. So FedEx is probably one of the most classic examples of a branded house. Another one would be GE with GE Energy, GE Healthcare, GE Aviation. Moving down the line is sub brands. So, this is where you create secondary brands within that master brand. So, those secondary brands usually have their own distinct voice, personality, campaigns, etc. So, you see the Apple example here. Then is an endorsed brand. So this is when you lead with a strong sub brand, but you're really leveraging that corporate brand as an endorser. Again, Marriott, I feel like, is a really standard example here, but other examples would include the Virgin businesses, Virgin Media, Virgin Hotels, Virgin Records, or someone like Kellogg's in the CPG space with Kellogg's Rice Krispies, Special K, breakfast bars, but they're all endorsed by that brand of Kellogg's. And then lastly is a house of brands. So this is when a company markets different products or services independently from one another. So each of these really stands on its own with that unique messaging, specific targets, etc. So these are, I think, more of the classic ways of working on what your brand strategy is going to look like once you get down to the nitty gritty of what your divisions are, your service offerings, or how those brands come together that are being integrated.
Yeah.
And Amy, let me interject. This is not academic theory. What Amy is showing is the real deal, and it's no coincidence I'm on the call with Red Caffeine today. We are working together as we speak on doing this very thing for a couple of acquisitions we've done. So this is real world stuff.
Yeah, and it's so important to get it right, and I think it really feeds into a couple questions from some of our audience around communicating this brand or this go forward strategy to both your employees and your customers, because getting this right and having clarity of where the business is headed means a lot to those two stakeholder groups. So can you talk a little bit about, that part of how does this also fit into the post acquisition communications plan?
Amy, you're doing that for us right now.
Yes, I am. Actually, if you want to go 2 pages ahead, I actually have a whole slide on this because it is so important. No matter what brand strategy you choose, communication to your key stakeholders is critical. These 3 groups are different, but what they need to hear is pretty much all the same. And using these overarching or guiding questions is going to help get you there. So when you think about the employees, you need to think about how will you keep them engaged? What do they need to know that's going to make them feel a part of the process? How are you going to encourage that you retain these employees and limit turnover during a time of change? Also, how can you give them ways to support this merger or acquisition versus actually sabotaging or bad-mouthing the integration? With customers, you need to think about what will make them stay and not switch to a competitor. Again, what's in this for them? That's what everybody is asking during these times of change. How can you encourage their recommendations and growth along with you versus, maybe bad mouthing what's going on? And then ultimately, how are you going to use this news and integration to attract new customers, making sure people know what your new offering really is? And then the third bucket of the owners and investors, always thinking back to how this will benefit them, really anticipating and bringing that larger value creation. So with all of these groups, it's just about consistent communication and bringing them along with you.
I amen to that, Amy. And I might add one more bucket, if you will, that being suppliers or vendors.
Sure.
The the firm that's supplying your office supplies, it won't matter. But if you have key suppliers or vendors, sometimes they get a little crazy when there's a new buyer or seller or change. So keep that in mind as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a great point. And I do see a question too about, specifically how can I communicate effectively with employees to ensure a smooth transition? And I think one of the biggest strategies is having a plan. Not everybody needs to know everything throughout the entire process, but if you even think about your employees and teams and different groups and understand who does need to know what when, and then establish a plan for how you're going to communicate that. What are those channels in which you're going to communicate? And then, one of the things we're talking about right now is what's the feedback loop? How can you make sure that the right people are available to answer questions, to alleviate nerves or fear? And, we really push for more information is better.
Yeah. I think, it's such a huge opportunity to be able to really optimize the, first couple of years of an acquisition, as long as you've got that storyline and narrative plan, because this is big news. And this is all the kinds of things that we dream of as marketers, to be able to tell that story and tell it well, both to our internal and external stakeholders. So it really is a cool opportunity. So I want to go back to Remo, around like just the mindset of selling your business. I feel like this is an emotional time for many leaders when they're really thinking about what's going to happen. It is, I think, also a time where, in most situations that I've been involved in, it's fairly secret. You're not really sharing this outside of a few key employees, typically, because some deals don't happen and you don't want everyone to get all nervous about something that's not going to actually be an outcome. But what can you tell business leaders, how can they prepare themselves for the emotional side of this very complex decision?
Yeah, I'm going to get to the emotional side, but the one takeaway that our audience needs to have today from Kathy, Amy, and Remo, if nothing else, is and this is now on the sell side, if you're selling your company, and we'll get to the emotions in just a second, Kathy. You're the third generation owner of this pen manufacturing business, and you know everything about pens, and you've built your company, and it's successful, and people want to buy from you. They want to work for you. You can sell pens to people that don't need pens. You're that good. You've never sold your business before. So even though you are a very good business person with these pens, you've never sold your business. So you need to find the advisors that have done it before and that will steer you through the process. So if no other takeaways today, that's the one. And part of that is you kind of need an advisor to help you with the emotional side of it. I mentioned earlier that you've built this baby. You've worked there your entire life. You've raised families with the people that you've worked with, and it's home, it's family. And all of a sudden, there's a couple things there. You probably won't be the boss anymore if you were to sell your business. Or how do you deal emotionally with that? And as challenging is, not only you're not the boss, there's someone else in your seat making decisions that you never would have made. That person is doing all the wrong things. I've spent 30 years building this business, and now they're going to tear it apart. So it is something you have to prep for, and you need to talk to other people about, whether it's a friend or family member who has been through the process before, or just a trusted advisor like a Red Caffeine or your attorney or your lawyer. It is not easy. And Kathy talked about how you keep it secret, that there's only a few people that you want to know. And to her point, that is because if it falls apart, then you've got employees thinking, well, when's the next shoe going to fall? They're going to sell. I'm going to lose my job. When I sold a company once, the the corporate owner of the company to which I was selling prepared for us, after some initial due diligence, a letter of intent. And we're not going to get into the mechanics of deals in this call today, but the letter of intent says, based on what I know, which is very little because I haven't done due diligence on your business yet, Remo, based on what I know, I am going to pay you $10 for your business. And then there's some other legal mumbo jumbo that goes into a letter of intent, which is only a couple of pages. It's not legally binding. But it's that way I can say, well, no, I think I'm worth 20. We're not going to talk anymore. But this company had that letter of intent, and they delivered it. Either someone from the company or they had a messenger deliver it to the receptionist in my office, not even in an envelope. So there was a letter of intent telling them what they would pay for my business and when. Now, fortunately, I happened to be walking by, and the receptionist said, "Oh, here's something for you, Remo, from XYZ." And that receptionist didn't have an idea of what it was. And so the secret wasn't out yet. But you do everything to keep things secret, and then something like that happens. So that's part of the emotional roller coaster that you'll run through. Because, by the way, you're going to be wanting to sell your business on Tuesday. And on Wednesday morning, you're going to stop. And no, I'm not going to sell it. And on Thursday, you're going to want to sell it. I got very far buying a second generation family business. And there was the owners were getting on in years and decided, well, maybe it is time. And the day before we were going to start signing documents, the owner called me and said, "Remo, I'm very uncomfortable and embarrassed to tell you this, but I'm not going to sell my business to you." This is the day before, after a lot of due diligence, a lot of time. He said to me, my wife said to me, the business owner, "If you sell your business, you're going to die the next day," because that was him. That was his life. So he wasn't ready, and he never sold the business, and it was only sold after his death many years later. So a lot of emotion per Kathy's comment, indeed.
Yeah. I feel like some of the better stories I've heard is when somebody has actually gotten a mentor to help them really get their arms around what that, buying process is going to look like, because that's also emotional. We're, they're kind of peeling back the onion and seeing things that are going on in the business, as well as just, what to expect after, day one after you've closed on the business. What is that life after being an owner going to look like? And that is a really, I don't think a lot of people think about that in the process. So
they don't, Kathy, and then they run into the problem of, what am I going to do today? Well,
exactly.
I have a boat, but the weather's bad. I like to golf, but I can't golf every day.
Exactly. Yes. Yeah. I mean, succession of any kind is challenging. Right. I think it's a little bit of a higher stakes game when it is your actual business that you've, built and run for a long time. All right. Well, let's talk about post-acquisition. What does the roadmap look like? I feel like this is also, a timing situation. You've kept everything secret. The owner knows, maybe a couple key leaders know, but all of a sudden, it's the deal is done. Let's move, and depending on who's buying your business, that acceleration of growth or the expectations post-acquisition can be pretty daunting to people that have never reported to a board or those types of things. So Amy, can you walk us through some of the, things that people should have in their roadmap?
Sure. I've got a slide for that. I love my slides. Well, at the next one, please. The next one. There we go. So at Red Caffeine, we have adopted the Boston Consulting Group's philosophy on the best way to really create value through that integration process. So this, I think, pertains more to that company who is buying another company, merging, acquiring, but it's good for anybody to understand what are the different pieces that the roadmap should really have. So I'll go through these quickly, but the first one is just about maintaining momentum in your ongoing business. So making sure that you're doing business as usual, that you're not stopping anything, you're not making any drastic changes as you're making other changes in your business. You really want to make sure that you're keeping that momentum going. From there, you're going to validate and then internally communicate and maximize the synergies. What are the synergies between these companies? What are you going to really raise to the top of why this matters to the marketplace and how it's going to benefit? So you're starting to look at your internal operation synergies. So HR, finance, technology, all of the different operations, main functions of a company, to understand how are they going to operate similarly or different now that these entities are coming together. You see internal communication again. This will be something that runs throughout the entire process, making sure that the right people know the right things at the right time. And then you're developing the new brand architecture. You're deciding how are these brands coming together? What does that new company look like to the external marketplace? From there, you're going to build what this new organization is from the inside. You're going to align the cultures to really drive forward. And in most cases, we're helping companies revise those foundational pieces. You want to, each company is going to come into it having their own mission, vision, values, or value propositions. And you have to decide, what are you keeping from each company? How are these coming together to form this new entity? So you're looking at those things, plus how is your positioning shifted in the marketplace? How do your personas or target markets change now that you're going after different, potentially going after different prospects? Updating your brand identity. Is your logo changing? Do you need a new tagline? What does that visual representation look like? And then again, internal launch, bringing the team along with you. From there, you move to the external side of things where you're using these combined capabilities to advance your competitive position. This is the whole reason you did this merger or acquisition, is to really get better. So you need to develop that external narrative. How are you telling this new brand story? And then, building your go-to-market strategy. What's your channel strategy? What's your campaign strategy? How are you going to get this news out? And then, executing on that external launch can be all the different things. You might need to build a brand new website. Your sales team are probably going to need new sales enablement tools. You're going to utilize PR to share the great news of, what's happening between these companies. And then the last bucket is really about, establishing a framework for future acquisitions or integrations. So this part doesn't always affect everybody, but when you do it once, you want to make sure you're building a framework that if you have a plan to do it again, that it's very scalable. You already have these things set, because you are not going to go through all of this every time you make an acquisition, unless it's that type of acquisition that would drive it. But, these are the main pillars of the roadmap that we utilize.
Yeah. Fantastic. Thank you. So, Remo, I want to ask a little bit about, some of the, what are some of the indicators that this is an appropriate strategy? I feel like there's things that are going on in the marketplace right now, whether it's, in terms of a lot of aging leaders. We're in this baby boomer exit of a certain part of our workforce. So I think some of that is driving M&A as an opportunity for a growth lane. But talk us through some of the other things that are triggers that a company should be considering, to add acquisition as part of their growth strategy.
Yeah, it always comes back to that old adage of build or buy. So you want to grow your business maybe into an adjacent service or product to what you've done so successfully to date. and you can try to build it yourself. Maybe it's did you need to build a new factory and buy some equipment, or if it's a service, do you need to hire another 50 people and invest in the technology that would be required to do that? Or and then that's the advantage there, Kathy, is sometimes you can better manage the outflows and the investment you're making, the timing of the cash needed. You can start small and kind of grow, right? But if you buy, it's all there theoretically. That I want to get into this adjacent space. It's all there. The people are there. The knowledge is there. The customers are there. So I have the business, but you're going to pay for that. You're going to pay extra for that, and and want to get a return. Uh, there's also some business people that might not be comfortable with a buy strategy because of all these challenges we just discussed. I used to call it, and I do not mean this disparagingly at all, a cattle. What was it called? Two Cadillacs and a boat. That a business owner was very happy, raised the family, has a couple of Cadillacs in the garage, owns a boat. Why do I need to get bigger? Why do I need to invest? Why would I want to take on the risk of an acquisition? And also, that's some pushback, by the way, on talking to people about selling their business. They might say, "I have enough money. I have two Cadillacs and a boat. Why would I sell my business?" So those particular challenges come up as one is deciding which strategy to take, and quite often it doesn't need to be one or two. It can be a mixture of both.
Yeah, I feel it. Yeah, I love that analogy. That's hilarious because I do feel like, especially in the mid market, there's a lot of people that have grown or have lifestyles beyond their wildest dreams because their
Right.
business have been able to provide that for them. I think it's like, to me, uh, when you don't really think about your end game in advance, then your end game becomes dictated to you, whether it's a death
Yeah.
of a key leader or you're just getting aged out of really being able to be the best person to take a business forward. And so to me, it's about, you're jeopardizing the opportunity for your family or your employees. And so I just feel like thinking about succession, whether you're selling or not, is just an important thing for all leaders, running like mid-market businesses, that if you don't have a generation that's going to be taking it forward, there is some responsibility or opportunity. I think we've even been hearing about small businesses that are closing because they don't even know that there's any value in their asset, that they, could have had a soft landing for customers or employees if they would have, started to have those conversations about, what their business value could look like, or rolling up into another organization and staying on just for a year or so to make sure that transition goes smoothly.
Kathy, that's a great point because and another reason sellers should have advisors. In many cases, a business owner is going to think their business is worth more than it is. But in the cases you're mentioning,
Yeah,
they don't recognize that value, and they need somebody with some open eyes to say, well, look what you could do here. Look at these options. And again, that's not their business. How would they
right.
know those options? They're
Yeah.
really good at making these pens. So that's a very important point.
All right. Well, with that, I'm going to ask one final question to you guys about, if you were just going to give a leader advice today, whether they're considering an acquisition or they're considering a succession plan through selling their business, what would you tell them? Is there one piece of advice that stands out?
Amy, do you want to go first there?
Sure. You guys probably know what I'm going to say already, which is just communication. Really having your trusted group of advisors, whether they're external or internal, but bring people along this journey with you. You're going to need help. You're going to need support. And the more people feel a part of it, the better it's going to be. And I'm not suggesting you have to tell everybody everything throughout the whole process, but bringing in the key people at the right time is just going to make things run smoother.
Yeah. I've got a two-part answer, Kathy. One for advice I'd give to a leader who's considering selling. That leader has to be committed to the selling process. He or she can dip toes in for a while and even go ankle deep or knee deep. Eventually, they've got to jump in and make that commitment that this is what we're going to do. And then on the acquisition side, on the buy side, if someone wants to buy, a takeaway I'd like them to consider is don't fall in love with that potential company you're going to buy, because and that happens, right? You're in the process. It takes several weeks, if not months, well, usually months of due diligence, and you kind of fall in love with that potential acquisition, and it might not be the one for you. So make sure you have the fortitude to walk away if necessary.
Yeah, and I guess I wonder about even like the try before you buy scenarios of strategic partnerships and seeing if there's synergy, even before you would actually, go into the direction of selling your business or merging your business or acquiring a business. Is there an opportunity to pilot some things if it's a strategic, type of purchase that could work?
Yeah, and Kathy, we do that. We have a target list. People on this call, if they're business owners, they're on somebody's target list
Right.
to be acquired, and we kind of do that pre-due diligence, if you will, of does it make sense to be part of our acquisition strategy. And then one final point on the commitment to, if you're going to sell your business, know that you will have a second full-time job, that you have to still run your business day to day, and then you're trying to sell it, and you have to be ready to hold down two jobs.
Yeah, I definitely was really fortunate to be on a board and watch the whole, process go forward. And it was unbelievable. It was just really, really exciting, but also just so much work for the CEO and a couple of key
Yeah.
leaders between trying to keep the business going, because as you know, not all deals go forward. So, you can't really take your eye off the ball of continuation of the business while you're trying to get sold. But it's a very fun and exciting process as you get into it. But preparation is key. I think that, there's so many options, and being more prepared and having a line of sight into, narrowing that optionality. And I think that plan can be really, really powerful. So
Indeed.
we are getting to the end of the hour, so I want to thank you both so much for joining me. This was an incredible opportunity, really big conversation, but I feel like we covered a lot of ground. We've got Amy and Remo's contact information. If you've got questions for them, feel free to reach out directly. You can put business as unusual in the subject line so they know that you're not just spamming them, that you've seen them on this live stream, and that you're just wanting to ask a one-on-one question. I want to next really thank our sponsors, M3 Learning, who is creating sales superstars through training and coaching, and then HR Source, the Association for Employers, and they really help manage HR needs efficiently and economically. And with that, I am going to tell you about what's coming up next on Business as Unusual. It's a very interesting topic, and I'm so super intrigued by it, because I think we all focus on asking great questions, but we really don't focus a lot of attention on really coming up with great with great answers. And so Dr. Brian Glibkowski, I'm sure I'm butchering his last name. He's the author of Answer Intelligence and Raise Your AQ. So, this is going to be an opportunity. We're going to really look at it from the business lens, from the sales lens, about how to really provide powerful answers. And so he's going to be able to talk us through Answer Intelligence and how it can enhance sales performance by effectively addressing complex questions with precision and confidence. There's actually 6 types of answers. So he's going to talk us through how to use them to influence and persuade others. Also good for leadership development if you are trying to inspire or, excite your team about something. So, whether you're in a sales role or a leadership role, I think this can be really powerful information. And then I'm actually going to do a live demonstration of these AQ tools, and they've got a really cool technology that we're going to, live demo on the next episode. And so we'll be able to see, me be the guinea pig for how this can be used in business applications. So I'm a little nervous. I'm a little bit scared. He promises me it'll be a safe space. So thank you again, both, for joining us today. This was just, a topic that is just so exciting and interesting, and there's just so many complexities for it. So I really appreciate both your insights.
Thanks, Kathy. It was a pleasure.
Thank you. And then I want to just leave you with that we are really hoping that these are things that you can help integrate in your growth strategy or optimize your business post-sale if you're looking at doing acquisition as part of your plan. But if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to myself or any of the Red Caffeine team. We're really happy to talk with you about this topic. It's something that we know well, and we're advising businesses on in an array of ways. So until next time, I want to leave you with, let's continue to challenge the usual and pursue innovative business solutions. Thank you again for joining us today, and we'll see you